All right, what is up, guys? So, if you haven't heard or you haven't seen, at the Summer Games Fest upcoming, which will be in about 3 weeks, I believe it's from the 7th through the 10th, or maybe a bit longer, but it's around those days. There's going to be a ton of different, game companies there, showing off new things about their games, new games, all this different type of stuff. And Ironmace is going to be there. It's been confirmed, as they are one of the 50 confirmed teams, I believe, that will be there to show off stuff, which obviously means Dark and Darker. Uh, and so, what exactly does this mean? Well, to be fair, we don't really know because, I mean, assuming they'll probably make a big announcement of some sort. Summer Games Fest is. It's not like one platform exclusive. Originally, I thought it was like a Steam thing, but it's not. It's kind of just to show off games in general. However, I would not be surprised if at Summer Games Fest we had a Steam announcement. I think it could be very, very possible to get one. And at least if we don't get a Steam announcement, then it's very likely that they will mention uh, that they are looking to go to Steam and probably an Epic Games announcement. Uh, but basically, they'll be moving to a different, they'll be moving on to like one of the established platforms, Epic or Steam. I could see that being, obviously, this is just my speculation. I have no knowledge. I'm just assuming, but that is what I believe. Because the thing is, it's like, I mean, also, regardless, because while I do think they will make some sort of big announcement, I'm almost guaranteeing that because it's also going to be around the time of the wipe. If you don't know, they've said the wipe will be early June, like the first week pretty much. So it's going to be right around the time the game's wiping, which will be obviously a big time for players to come back into the game. And so far, Iron Mace really hasn't marketed Dark and Darker. You know, they had all the stuff with Nexon, all that stuff, but that's pretty much over by now. I'm pretty sure that's what they've said. Like, all that stuff's mostly over, so they can start marketing their game. And Summer Games Fest is a really, really big place to do it because a lot of people watch Summer Games Fest. It gets coverage from a lot of different people. You know, it's like a huge thing on Twitch. All the streamers watch it. It's really, really big, and it's like a lot of publicity that Dark and Darker is gonna get. And if you don't know, because you're relatively new to Dark and Darker, or just didn't really give it much attention previously, during like the old playtest, like playtest 4, playtest 5, this game when it was on Steam and it was like free to play, this game had a ton of people interested in it, right? For example, like at the OTK Game Awards, Dark and Darker won Indie Game of the Year, which was pretty crazy. Obviously a lot of games up for there. A lot of people like watch that, so that's one really big thing. But this game was liked by a ton of people. Like it had, at one point 100K plus players and like 100, 200,000 people watching people play it on Twitch. All of the big streamers you can think of played it for the most part. Like anyone that ever branches out and plays different games that aren't just stuck in one game, for the most part played it. Like, you had like Soda Poppin', Asmongold, those type of people, all of them played this game. But other than, just what I was talking about there, I do think that we'll probably get a couple other things. Because this has been, some speculation that people have talked about before is because, we haven't really got much content recently. We haven't really got much at all. They didn't do a patch this week or, so that is what that is. And we overall haven't had a ton of changes recently, which is regardless of whether they add content or not, they normally do a decent amount of changes like in each patch. So what I'm thinking, and what a lot of other people think, is they are kind of saving up content to release it, to show it off here for the first time. Probably, I mean, Druid, we already have playtest game, like we already played a bit. But they'll probably announce, Druid's coming to live servers, or maybe even the finished product of Druid. I think that's a possibility. Not, I think it's a low possibility, but it is a possibility. I would say the Ice Abyss with the Frost Wyvern, I would almost guarantee we're going to see that there. I think that's going to be one of the big things they show off for actual gameplay. Potentially arenas. I know that recently, or I say recently, a couple weeks ago, there was in some of the data mining videos that some stuff about arenas was found out. Like they had like maps, like banners for like different teams for arena and that type of thing. So I could definitely see arena getting some sort of announcement, or maybe they mention it or say like, hey, this is in the works. This is our early like idea of it, that type of thing. But overall, I do think this is going to be a really, really big turning point for Dark and Darker, especially if they give an announcement for like Steam or Epic release. Because the thing is, right now, is Dark and Darker has a ton of problems. Yes, no one's going to deny that. However, one of the biggest problems currently in the game is lack of players, right? I mean, like, let's, look at the player list right now. Literally, I mean, there's only, what, fucking just 5,400 people in the game? 5,600, like, give or take, or 5,500, give or take. Like, this game does not have a ton of players right now. And one big thing that they've been doing continuously because of lack of players, they had to constantly make adjustments to the game because they're always worrying about, okay, we don't have enough players, some lobbies are dead, some regions are dead, which, yeah, that is completely true. And because of, these issues, they've had to try to fix it and make things better, like, map rotation. Recently, they've removed gear-based matchmaking in low population servers, like that type of thing. They're constantly trying to fix this. However, if they have all these players filling up their servers and filling up these, these more dead regions, and even like, the more popular regions are sometimes dead, but they have all these players filling this up, they can focus on other things, which is really, really big for them. They don't have to keep focusing on these one things. And I know the one very popular argument that I've even said myself is, well, the problem is that yes, the game does suffer from a lack of players. However, if you draw all these players in, you need to be able to retain them. I mean, obviously, you're never going to retain everybody, but you want to retain a large portion of these players. And if they can't do that, that's going to be really bad. Because everything that's happened so far, right? Like everything, all the players leaving, all like, like the bad updates, all that shit, that can be kind of excused because in this broad sense of, okay, well, whenever they release on Steam, whenever they release on Epic, whenever, they do whatever they do, they're going to get a ton of players coming back into the game because it's sure they will. However, once they do that, there's like that is the second chance. There are no more second chances once you release on those platforms. You can't re-release. If this game releases on Steam or Epic or both of them, and then all those players that come in to play it, just like, oh, this game sucks, I don't want to play it, and they leave after a week or two, like that shit's chalked. Those players are very unlikely just to come back, right? And I'm not going to say that, we've never had games that have had really bad openings and never came back. I mean, think like No Man's Sky, right? No Man's Sky had a notoriously awful opening. However, people are starting to play that now. But I don't think Ironmace is the type of company where, if this game because the thing is, if this game starts off and this game loses all its players, it will directly like affect all of the other people playing it, right? Like No Man's Sky is a game that's like you could play single player and just be fine, relatively, it's quote unquote single player and be fine. Like you don't have to have other players in your lobby to enjoy the game. This is not the case. If you have a game like this and it loses all its players, even if it has some loyal fans still, those people are just gonna eventually stop playing because there's no one else to play with, right? Like this game, the core portion of this game involves the multiplayer. You have to have players in this game to keep your other players interested. If you lose, if you lose a bunch of players and your lobby start dying out like they are right now, like it's very clear people just aren't going to want to play. Like you're just not going to have enough players. And even this, like this is so low. Like this is literally only like 5,500 players, but and like you're like, okay, that's it's not the worst, but you have to consider that's 5,500 players across 9 different queues. You have normal and HR, and then HR you have under 300 gear score, above 300 gear score. So it's 9 queues in all of these regions for 5,000 players. That's like it's like what 72 queues, and you have 5,000 players split between them. Oh, not this. Whoopsies. And even then, it's not really like you can't really count it as that many people because it's really only 3,000. Like the people in the lobby, like yes, they're on the game, but these don't really matter for actual people like in the game. It's the people that are in the dungeon that matter. So really, this game only has about 3,000 players right now. So like I was saying, it's like if they release on Steam, and I do expect there to be, if I not, I think this is probably the perfect place for them to do it. Not that it's necessarily the perfect time, but I do think it's the perfect place for them to do it to release on Steam because this is going to be one of the really, really big areas where everybody's going to see it. And yes, like Dark and Darker has had a lot of people play it because obviously they made a ton of money when it released and all that, and like people did see it. However, the amount of attention they'll get being on Steam is way more than what they got when they released the first time on their own launcher, because a lot of people don't even know about this game anymore. The last they heard about it was in during the playtest. The game got sued, and that's kind of just off their radar for now. Like that's like your average player that's not gonna actively follow the game, right? But when it comes on Steam, everybody that's just gonna you load up Steam, you're just gonna see it, right? Because it's probably gonna be like the front page because it's gonna be a very popular game. But everybody's gonna see it. It also comes with ease of access. I don't have to download a new launcher to play like just this one specific game because for the most part, people don't like doing that, right? Unless you're like a really big, well-established game, thing like a Riot launcher or something like that. Most people don't want to have to download a new separate launcher to play one game. But on Steam, obviously you play it on there, and it could just absolutely like blow up. Thing is, this game has the potential to be massive because there is nothing else. Well, I mean, with these guys, okay, I'm not gonna say there's nothing else, but these guys are pioneering a new field, or like a new genre of game, right? Well, not necessarily a genre, but a new niche of game. That's probably the best way to put it. There is really not much else out there like this, and the only other games that are out there that are like Dark and Darker right now are copying Dark and Darker with what they're doing, right? Think Dungeonborn. I love Dungeonborn. One of my favorite games. One of my favorite games. I enjoy it almost as much as I enjoy Dark and Darker. But what they're doing, I mean, undoubtedly, like, it's definitely like, they didn't do it first. They didn't come up with that of their own idea. They saw Dark and Darker and said, wow, people really like that. We're gonna do this. Dark and Darker, they have the lead on this, and if they do it like correctly, Dark and Darker could become a game that's on the level of Tarkov in terms of what it is, right? Like, Tarkov's been out for years, and it's still, even games that are like similar to it, it has no competitors. Like, that game is the de facto biggest like extraction looter game out there. And Dark and Darker absolutely has potential to be that. However, that's only assuming the devs can start putting out updates and putting out content that keeps people wanting to play their game. Because how it is right now at the current pace, that's just not realistically going to happen. And like, I listen, a lot of people are like, "Oh man, like, if you hate Dark and Dark so much, don't play it." Things I love this game, right? I really do. I love Dark and Darker. I think this game is so fun. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I enjoy it so much. Love the game, right? But you just can't really ignore what we've had. And I thought I wanted to put a video. I was gonna put a video out on it, it would have been a really long video. I was gonna go over pretty much every single patch note since early access released, and I was gonna talk about the decline of the game. But I decided, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that right now because we're about to have the Summer Games Fest. I want to see what happens there. I want to see what that like kind of points for the game, like the direction that sends the game in, and see like, just what that's gonna mean. And if that looks positive and everything looks good there, then I'm just not gonna make the video because I just don't see a need of it. Because talking about the decline of a game that has 100K players because it just released on Steam, that doesn't really make a ton of sense, right? But but I think it's still worth mentioning is that the Dark and Darker devs have historically, they like, I don't think they're the worst devs of all time, but they have been known to make many, many mistakes constantly, over and over. And if this game releases on Steam or Epic and they continue to do that and they're not improving their game, they're not releasing content at the pace that players want, then it's kind of it's just gonna be chalked. And I mean, I just don't really know what else to do from there. Like, I don't know what else they're supposed to do. But if they can hit the mark, if they hit the nail on the head with the release and the content they drop, and they can keep players coming back wanting more, then this game could be one of the best games of all time, and it could be one of the biggest games of all time. This could be a game that people are trying to mimic for, 10 years to come and failing to do so. Because I'm sure if you guys have played this game and you love this game, you know that there was a time when Dark and Darker, when you load up this game to play it, it gave you a feeling that no other game could, right? That is exactly how I feel. This game is something special. I truly do believe that. And I believe that if they can do it right, it's just nothing else is gonna match it. But with that being said, I'm gonna wrap up the video there. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.